interest for 18 months. This is a great deal. And the best reasons to do business with Crumweedy? Trust. They only do things the right way, and they have the best warranties in the business. It's a multi-generational family business that shares your values. Roofing, siding, windows, even kitchen cabinet restyling. What do you do?
Call Crumweedy.
630-595-8020. That's 630-595-8020. And remember, homeisneedy.com. Crumweedy Home Pros.
You can't listen to the news without hearing about rising inflation. The prices for goods and commodities have dramatically increased, and the government is printing trillions of dollars with no plan to pay for it. All of that is unfortunately true. Dennis Prager here for AmFed Coin and Bullion. Historically, gold and silver have always been one of the best bets to protect your wealth from high inflation. If you're considering investing in precious metals for the first time, please call my friend, I only use that term when it is true, Nick Grovich, my friend, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion. When you call AmFed Coin and Bullion, you're not dealing with a mega broker who has dozens or hundreds of salespeople. At AmFed, you're dealing with a select handful of specialists who provide you with personalized attention, honest information, and sound advice. You'll never be pressured into buying anything that you don't need. So before you spend a penny elsewhere, please call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion. He'll take care of you like he takes care of me. 800-221-7694. That's 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com.
Summertime is the perfect time to get outside and get your morning going. So grab a Nature Valley granola bar, get outdoors, and experience the energizing power of nature this morning.
8:37 in our Team Hochberg Traffic Center, Jim Telemonti.
In Homewood, closures are in place around Ridge Road and Harwood for filming until 9 tonight. On the Tri-State Tollway, we see northbound delays from 115th and Ridgeland past 95th. There's a stall in the right lane. Farther north, there's congestion in both directions around the Grand Avenue curve. Inbound Kennedy, delays start around 190 at O'Hare. It's 46 minutes from the airport to downtown, quicker than the Express. Outbound 31 minutes downtown to O'Hare. Eisenhower 47 minutes, 390 to downtown. Outbound 28. The Stevenson runs 48 minutes from the Veterans Memorial to DeSable Lakeshore Drive. The Ryan 19 minutes, 95th to downtown. Outbound 11. Everything's open after an earlier wreck near the Stevenson. I'm Jim Telemonti on AM 560 The Answer.
In case you're curious, they're filming the television show Paper Girls in Homewood today, just so you know. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Clouds and sun, shower in spots. Most of the area will be rain-free. High of 76. 67 right now. Next news at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in Framey J this morning, former Tribune columnist John Cass. You can get his work now at johncassnews.com, and you should sign up there, as I did. Also get the Chicago A podcast there.
Thanks, Dan.
We have heard from Dr. Tony Fauci. We have heard from Dr. Rochelle Walensky. Dr. Tony Fauci said no lockdowns will be needed. Not that I go running to the bank with that. Dr. Walensky, conversely, saying she hopes there will be an NFL and an NBA season this fall into the winter. Hopes there will be.
Just get the Sox into the World Series, okay?
How about we hear from NIH Director Francis Collins, the third member of this troika. He was on Fox News Sunday. He's got some good news for you, John. He's got some bad news. Would you like to hear the good news or the bad news first?
Whatever. I'm just the subject.
Bad news. Let's get the bad news out of the way.
Delta is spreading. We know it's extremely contagious, and certainly in some parts of the country like Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, it is reaching very high levels, and we are now once again seeing case levels per day closing in on 100,000, which we haven't seen since February. So this is really a different virus than last year. And everything we learned about COVID a year ago, you got to sort of hit the reset button on now how we need to react to it. We also are learning, and this is not particularly good news, that vaccinated people, if they get infected, which is rare, but it does happen, they have pretty high viral loads, which means they could also be passing it on to other people. Even though they have a very low risk of getting seriously ill themselves, they can be a vector. That was the reason for CDC saying it's time in those places where the virus is spreading, which is about 75% of our counties, to put the masks back on when you're in indoor space, whether you're vaccinated or not. This is the best way to stop the transmission of this very contagious virus.
Yeah, that was the real bad news. Their talking point that what we have now is an endemic of the unvaccinated sort of went away when it was learned that the viral load in the vaccinated mirrors the viral load, the Delta variant mirrors the viral load in the unvaccinated in places like Provincetown. Okay, well, so that's the bad news.
Good news is that you could get on the L without a mask with all your other stone friends, right? After Lollapalooza and hang out.
Yeah.
Until they tell you to mask up.
And other good news?
The good things. The vaccines work extremely well, including against Delta. If you're vaccinated right now, your chance of getting infected by this goes down by at least 3.5-fold. Your likelihood of having symptoms goes down by 8-fold. Your likelihood of getting really significantly ill in the hospital goes down by 25-fold. That's an extremely encouraging new set of data from the real world where we're tracking this. So vaccinations are still our best hope, and they are working beautifully. But, of course, we need to be sure more people take advantage of that. So the other part of the good news that I'm happy to see is I think we may, Dana, have seen a tipping point now where vaccinations are going up every week. 56% increase in vaccinations in the last couple of weeks, especially in those areas hardest hit. Goodness, Louisiana has tripled their rate of vaccinations in the last couple of weeks. That means people are finally sort of saying, okay, I've waited long enough, let's do this.
Mm-hmm. That's the good news and the bad news, according to NIH Director Francis Collins. At least he is the most plain-spoken of the three members of the Troika. The others, you get all sorts of middling abstractions. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined again by Jeffrey Tucker. He's the editorial director for the American Institute for Economic Research and author of Liberty or Lockdown. Jeffrey, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Sure, and I agree with you about Collins. At least it was coherent English.
Yes, that always helps.
It's kind of gibberish otherwise. I mean, that's all that stuff he was saying. None of it needed to be said. We've understood for a century how mutations of mostly mild viruses among most people, work. They're more widespread. They're less severe. It's not a surprise. None of this is even slightly interesting. This is all just kind of ginned up panic, and I don't know why it's happening. I think we're addicted to panic. We're addicted to reorganizing all of our lives to avoid infection, which is, I think, just sheer folly.
Well, and this was Andrew Sullivan's point, an interesting piece that he wrote at his Substack, Let It Rip. And he says the key question, do we really want to get back to living? I do.
Yeah.
So take the rational precautions, a solid vaccine, go about your business as you always did. Yes, I'll wear a mask indoors if I'm legally required or politely asked, but I don't really see why anyone should. In a free society, once everyone has access to a vaccine that overwhelmingly prevents serious sickness and death, there's no reason to enforce lockdowns again or mask mandates or social distancing any longer. In fact, there's every reason not to. Now it's time for people to make their choice.
Yeah, I like that article. It was good. I mean, I have my problems with that. I mean, I think he doesn't understand about natural immunity. Natural immunities are generally, and we know this, we didn't need to know this, but we already knew this, but it's been shown again and again, natural infection is more broad and efficacious and safer with vaccines. And it's probably the case that 150 million Americans have by now natural immunities that are quite efficacious and not in need of a vaccine. But nonetheless, that article was good, and I liked it. I think it was a good piece. We have this extreme distorted view of life today. That I just read a letter in the Washington Post by a woman who said, me and my son, we huddled in our home for a full year and had our groceries delivered. By whom? She doesn't care. We had our groceries delivered for a full year, and then I let down my guard, and I went to the grocery store without a mask, and then sure enough, oh, by the way, she also had been vaccinated, right? Sure enough, I got sick. Now it's true I'm not in the hospital, but I tell you what, I have a cough.
So
and a headache, and I can't taste my morning coffee. So I'm just heads up, people. Heads up, wear your mask. All right.
So you have this fear or this addiction to fear and fear porn throughout the culture.
Yeah.
A culture that did once celebrate the individual, the cowboy. My favorite show, Alone, where survivalists try to live alone. And instead, now we're terrified of everything. And then you have this paragraph in your piece in Real Clear Markets. I pity anyone who took a few weeks vacation from the news during this period. We went from believing that the whole point of the vaccines was to protect against infection to realizing that this was not the case. Now, I'm one of these people that when I hear the squawking on this subject, I tend to turn down the volume and think about like the U.S. men's soccer team because I just can't handle it. It's coming at me left and right, faster and faster, and I'm a news guy. I'm a newsman.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's too much. In particular, on the point I just made there, what really matters here is that there was such a push for a vaccine because people thought that was the key to opening the economy. It was so pushed so hard, so fast, Operation Warp Speed and all this stuff, that what happened is the vaccine companies who have manufactured a good product were in a position to really exaggerate the efficacy of the vaccine and not give good test results, and didn't really level with the public, and neither did the CDC. They were promoting these vaccines as some sort of panacea, like measles or smallpox. But we're talking about a very different virus here than you get with smallpox. This is a virus that mutates. That's not a stable virus, and it's just not so simple to create a vaccine for it. What you're going to end up doing is a lot of hits and misses, a lot like the flu vaccines, and they only work a third of the time. So we were not told the truth about this, and the companies didn't tell the truth, and I understand why. Because they needed emergency use authorization, they ended up exaggerating the efficacy of their own product because they wanted to get it through, and everybody just wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and it went through. Well,
so
now
no liability.
And now we're finding out the truth about it, which is something, by the way, that every real vaccine expert in this field knew going into it. They knew that the best you could hope for from these vaccines is a slight minimization of severe effects and protecting of the people who otherwise would experience severe outcomes, which is overwhelmingly the very old and sick. Okay, so that they definitely needed to be vaccinated, and this vaccine really does give them an edge, if they have a functioning immune system. And that is good enough. That's what we should have been telling the public. The truth has been a terrible casualty throughout this whole thing. We don't even believe what they say anymore. And for understandable reasons, we have been lied to consistently for 18 months, and people are just fed up with it, and the public health authorities are completely discredited.
Well, and one of the other things, too, another topic area in terms of the truth being a casualty is with respect to therapeutics. And the senior public health officials, the TV people, telling people to not believe their lying eyes or their own healthcare experience. I took ivermectin and I got better. No, that didn't happen, or we're not allowed to talk about ivermectin. Yeah. And now you've got Cambridge researchers. This is interesting. It's even fascinating this is going on. Cambridge scientists using AI to uncover 200 approved drugs that have the potential to fight off COVID-19. They winnowed it down to two approved drugs, already FDA approved, Proguanil, an anti-malarial drug, and sulfasalazine, a medication for rheumatoid arthritis and Crohn's disease, were able to suppress viral replication in cells, so that perhaps two more drugs already approved, full approval, could be repurposed. But you're not even allowed to have this discussion.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the most bizarre aspects of the last 18 months. You just check your intuition on this. When there's a bug out there that gets people sick, what should you be thinking about? I think the first thing you should think about is how do we get sick people, how do we make sick people better?
Yes. That's just crazy enough to work, I think, that approach. It's just,
Instead, everybody's thinking about not about sick individuals and their doctors and what should be done to help sick people. Instead, we're thinking about these big macro, public health issues. How do we suppress the virus? How do we drive it out nation by nation? How do we drive down the R0? All these big topics that had nothing to do with people's individual health. And so therapeutics have been incredibly not just neglected, but censored and demonized and dismissed. I mean, what is wrong with us?
I don't know.
What is?
That's why
wait a second.
Tell us what's wrong with us, Jeffrey.
You're supposed to tell us this. What is wrong with us? And Dan too.
Yeah. One other topic too, just because this is obviously front and center in the minds of anybody with school-age children. Rochelle Walensky, again, on Brett Baer's program on Friday, Dr. Walensky, CDC director, giving the whole, as long as there's a virus in the community, then it's better if, 2-year-olds and up mask up in schools. And, that they just, and she will not get into specific data. She will not provide any context. She just does the appeal to, hey, the threat is out there, so let's err on the side of caution, right? Another phrase that's become meaningless through overuse and misapplication.
I get tired of it. The articles about children and COVID have been pouring out from completely mainstream. The back in the day, it was only me and my friends were writing these things about this, that COVID was a vanishingly small threat to children at all, and that's a real blessing. Like if you could choose COVID or Asian flu or polio, you would definitely choose COVID in terms of the demographic outcomes. This thing, it just has no effect on young people. And they're not the drivers of the disease, and not spreaders of the disease. I mean, kids are kind of germ factories anyway, but COVID's the least of their problems. And that, opinion we were pushing out there in spring of 2020. Now you see the same thing being pushed by the Atlantic, by the New Yorker.
Yeah.
There are articles in every kind of mainstream liberal, I hate to use that term because it's too flattering, every center-left publication saying the same thing, and still it's not having an effect. And I think this is because they're kind of caught on the horns of the limit, because they're saying all people who are unvaccinated need to be masked up and afraid. And, of course, the vaccines, you can't get the vaccine for children. So they're wanting to strap a piece of cloth on all the kids' faces and ruin their personalities, and I think it's perverse, and I have to believe that something's going to give. And parents are furious about this. They should be, and there should be revolt. I think there is a growing revolt in this country. I don't believe. I can tell you that students in Texas, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, South Dakota, Wyoming, and many other places will not be en masse this fall. They will not be. Now, I don't know about New York and Michigan and
Illinois
and California and so on. Increasingly compliance with these arbitrary edicts that make no sense is a political signal. It really is. Even in Texas, I have friends who said they went to church on Sunday. It was yesterday. And said that the known sort of center left members of the church were all in masks and everybody else was not. So, we've got a political signal here. We've got a tribal identification sign going on, and it's truly tragic. It doesn't have to do with public health anymore. It has to do with politics and the political divisions of this country are going all the way down to the clothing choices that we wear on our faces. Unbelievable.
He is Jeffrey Tucker, editorial director for the American Institute for Economic Research, author of Liberty or Lockdown. Pick it up. Jeffrey, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.